Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I am your host, the Fellow KGB. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB. And today is Saturday, June 27th. I'm not sure what time it is, but it's in the afternoon, and we're going to be looking at the NFC West today. So I'm going to go through all four of those teams, and we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. We'll go alphabetical, and we'll just do a little fantasy team preview and get to know what the rosters are going to look like and who we're going to be needing for the 2020 season. So if you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel as we try to grow this thing. And if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms, I highly recommend you check us out on YouTube. That's where I do the screen shares and you just get the best, I think, with the visuals and a little bit better presentation. So here we go. We're on the fantasyfellowship.com. We're going to go to the team pages here, and we're just going to select the Arizona Cardinals here on the bottom. Second-year head coach Cliff Kingsbury. He's also the offensive play caller, so he's there as offensive coordinator. And then Vance Joseph is back as the defensive coordinator. So we got continuity there, which we like. Last year let's look at the stats from the Cardinals. They went 5-10-1. They tied that one game against Detroit, the opener. But we see 554 pass attempts last year to 396 rushing attempts. They were behind a lot, so they had to throw a little bit. So I'm expecting more of the same in the passing attempts this year, maybe a little bit more rushing attempts, as they're going to be a little bit better as a team all around. So pretty much what we were looking at last year, just a little bit, step forward, I think, in all areas of the game. So at quarterback, Kyler Murray, of course. Backups, we're not going to really care about Brett Hundley, Drew Anderson, or Chris Streveler. It's all about Kyler Murray. If we look at what Kyler Murray did last year, quarterback stats, and I'm going to just filter here. And I'm looking at I filtered by ESPN here on FF today because it's 4-point passing touchdowns, -2 interception. So we see Kyler Murray was quarterback 8 last year, about 17.5 points per game. He threw 3,722 yards, 20 touchdowns to 12 picks, and then he added, of course, 544 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. That's where we're going to get the majority of his floor and volume for fantasy. So we love that. I think he's going to be growing in all those numbers, especially with DeAndre Hopkins, who we'll get to in a bit. But Kyler Murray, quarterback 8 last year as a rookie, he's got potential top 5 upside this year. So if I look at my projections right now, I got him throwing 25 touchdowns, 13 picks, basically rushing the same as he did last year, 565 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then I guess if we look at my quarterback rankings real quick, I think he did just finish inside. So I got him up here. That's 2019. Let me filter here by 2020 real quick. Kyler Murray, and then we'll filter by stats. I got Kyler Murray as my QB5 right now. I think he's got one of the most upsides of all the players outside of Mahomes, Jackson, Prescott, and maybe Russell Wilson. So that's where he sits for me. So Kyler Murray, look for him after the first 3-4 quarterbacks that I just mentioned go. That's where you're going to want to snag Kyler Murray if you want to get a piece of that offense. In the Superflex League, you probably got to snag him as early as the 3rd or 4th round. But, I mean, the dude's got top 5 upside, and the offense is just going to get better with DeAndre Hopkins and a full year for Kenyon Drake in the offseason program and Chase Edmonds. So everything about Kyler Murray is an A-plus for me. And then I guess we'll look at the running backs real quick here. Of course, David Johnson is gone. He's in Houston, part of that package deal for Hopkins. But, I mean, last year, Kenyon Drake came in and he played really well with this team. He rushed 123 times for 643 yards. That's 5.2 yards per carry, 8 rushing touchdowns, 28 receptions, and 171 receiving yards. So not as good as receiving, yards per catch, 6.1. But it's good to see that he was used as a receiver here. Let's just take a look quick at what his points per game looked like when he got to Arizona. Because I'm pretty sure he was a low-end running back 1, definitely a running back 2 in PPR leagues. So he averaged 15.3 fantasy points per game. Now that's with both teams, Miami and Arizona. So I think he got traded week 9 here. And ever since then, he put up some pretty big numbers, a 26.2, a 10.1, a 14.0. His low games were 7.1 and 9.7. But then to finish the year, 4 touchdowns against Cleveland, another 2 touchdowns against Seattle, and 1 more against the Rams. We see a 39.6, a 33.4, and a 17.3. So lots of usage in the passing game, which we like. His yards per catch were not great, but he is being used as a receiver, so we like that. Even when he was in Miami, he was a pretty successful RB2 at least, getting 8 to 12, 13 points a game. So Kenyon Drake, he's got RB1 upside this year for sure with David Johnson out of the picture, and he's going to get the touchdowns. The thing, I mean, he had the 4-touchdown game to end the year, so that's going to boost his numbers. He did go 4 games without a touchdown, which is a bit concerning, and that's where you see this lull of 10, 14, 7, and 9.7. So there could be games like this that happen, and there's probably going to be games where he gets these 30s and these 26s. So it's going to be volatile, but he's got the passing floor usage. And then I guess behind him, Chase Edmonds, I have listed as a co-starter. If you remember Chase Edmonds, before Edmonds got hurt, they were using him pretty heavily. So week 5 is when he came in and started making some plays with a 17.6, a 14.7. And then this week 7 game was the game where David Johnson got, he started and then got pulled right away. And Chase Edmonds went off for 3 touchdowns, 126 rushing yards, and 24 receiving yards for 35 points. And then it just so happens that week 8, we get Chase Edmonds to starting against the Saints, and then he tweaks his hamstring, and then that makes them call Miami and say, we need a running back. So Chase Edmonds really set the door up for Kenyon Drake to be there. I think when both these guys are healthy, Chase Edmonds has 8 to 10 touches per game upside, whether that's 6 to 8 carries and 3 to 4 receptions. We see he did get some targets here. So that's a good part of his game. He had 8.8 yards per catch last year, 5.1 yards per rush. He did score 5 touchdowns. So I love Kenyon Drake, but I don't think Chase Edmonds is going away anytime soon. So it's going to be a split, but it's going to be heavily Kenyon Drake split. So we'll see if they can keep Chase Edmonds healthy and on the field as a scat back, change of pace guy. And then I guess behind them, Eno Benjamin, DJ Foster, and Jonathan Ward. They took Eno Benjamin here in the 7th round out of Arizona State. He's a fun player to watch, so check out his YouTube highlights. If you can, he's pretty electric. I'm surprised he went in the 7th round, actually. So that was really their only offensive playmaking spot that they took, besides the offensive tackle. Otherwise, it was all defensive tackles and linebackers. So they're trying to make that defense better, which is good. But, yeah, man, the running backs in this offense are both really interesting. If you do go get Kenyon Drake in the 2nd round, Chase Edmonds is the handcuff. And if anything happens to those guys, the other one's going to be the one that we're going to want to start every week in our lineup. So there will be points in the backfield, so go ahead and check out both those guys. And I like Edmonds as a late-round dart. I think he's still going to have value even when Kenyon Drake is healthy, whether that's 6 to 10 fantasy points per game. But he's got potential to be used heavily if anything happens to Drake. So I like that. But, I mean, the real meat here, besides Kyler Murray in the running game, is going to be with DeAndre Hopkins. And we really don't have much to go off of. But last year, this team could not really stretch the field vertically like Cliff Kingsbury wanted to, which is why they went out and got Hopkins. Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald work better in the middle and the short areas of the field. So these guys are still going to be running around while Hopkins gets to do the dirty work on the outside. And then it remains to be seen, but there is room for a 4th receiver on this team. So that's going to be between second-year receivers Keyshawn Johnson, Andy Isabella, and Hakeem Butler. One of these guys is going to step up and command the 4th receiver spot, which is one of these guys has to help stretch the field. You're going to have, Hopkins on one side and then probably Hakeem Butler on the other side with Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald doing the dirty work in the middle. But as far as fantasy this year in a redraft league, you only want Hopkins. I think Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald can have nice seasons, but I don't really see them being consistent week to week. If anything, no more than 4 or 5 catches per game. So maybe floors of like 10 fantasy points per game kind of thing. And who knows, maybe Hopkins, takes the lid off the cover and these teams have to respect that a little bit more and they let Kirk and Fitzgerald do a little bit more work. So these guys are no more than wide receiver 3s this year. They should be on your bench until we see kind of what happens with this offense with Hopkins in it. But I'm super interested in seeing if any of these second-year receivers, Keyshawn Johnson, Andy Isabella, and Hakeem Butler, can make some noise. Hakeem Butler's got the highest upside, I think, with his redshirt year last year. He was a little bit slow in the training camp, so there was a lot of worry about people calling him a bust already. But they took him in the 4th round, the first pick on the 3rd day. So that's a pretty coveted spot to go. And I think we're going to see his workload ramp up year 2. So I like Hakeem Butler, and then all these other receivers just trying to make the team. But it's all about DeAndre Hopkins. I got Hopkins as a wide receiver 1 this year. I don't think Hopkins is an elite top 5 receiver anymore in this offense. I think he lost a little bit of value going from Deshaun Watson to Kyler Murray. We'll see how good of a deep ball passer Kyler Murray is, but I'm pretty sure Deshaun Watson's got that area a little bit covered more than Kyler Murray. So I like Hopkins, but I'm not drafting him as a top 5 receiver. He's more of a wide receiver, 5 to 10 for me. And he's going to look best as your wide receiver too, I think, on draft day. So that's where I sit with the receivers. And then the tight ends, we're really not going to worry about the tight ends. If we look at what they did last year, they had Charles Clay. I'm not sure who Williams is, Max Williams, Dan Arnold, and I think that's Darren Daniels. But only 56 targets to tight ends last year. No one had more than 237 yards. They did catch 4 touchdowns as a group, but we're just not going to be relying on any of these guys for touchdowns or yards in the tight end spot. So, but it is, I guess we'll look at the depth chart real quick. It's Max Williams, Darrell Daniels, Dan Arnold, and Ryan Becker. I can't really give a recommendation as to any of those guys. So it's all about, Cardinals are all about Kyler Murray, top 5 quarterback option, Kenyon Drake. He's going to be a fringe RB1 this year. Chase Edmonds is a guy that you could have on your bench. And he could, he's going to be a PPR kind of guy where he gets 6 to 10 fantasy points per game. And then, of course, DeAndre Hopkins, a low-end wide receiver 1 with upside. And then Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald. Those are just PPR guys that we can have on our bench and be wide receiver 3-4s when we need them. So it's super exciting, though. I think the Cardinals are going to take a step forward. They did make I guess if we look at what they did in the offseason, free agency, it was all about DeAndre Hopkins, but they did sign some guys here on defense. So they're really trying to make this side of the ball better, and we'll see if they can do that. We see the 8th overall pick go to linebacker Isaiah Simmons. They grabbed a tackle, Josh Jones, who fell kind of far in the draft. So they did shore up the offensive line a little bit, and then they still have some defensive tackles here and a linebacker back here. So I like what the Cardinals did. It's all about DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason, but they did make a lot of aggressive moves on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know, they're going to be competitive. They only won 5 games last year. They're probably only going to be a 6 to 8 win team this year, but their games are going to be a lot more manageable and in control. So we might see those rushing attempts go up like I talked about at the beginning of the video. So, but yeah, overall, excited about the Cardinals. Go ahead and get your guys. And it's going to be a fun NFC West. I think top to bottom, this might be one of the most stingiest competitive divisions. So it should be fun. Good year for the Cardinals. And I think that's going to do it for this video. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel as we grow this thing. And yeah, if you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms, it'd be great if you could leave us a review or a rating, whatever the podcast platform allows. And that's greatly appreciated. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.